Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. This is the fourth video in our new native garden space that have expanded the Raleigh garden here. The city council gave us this property to use to plant native plants and teach some garden sustainability and other things that we'll do over here in this garden space. And it adjoins the Raleigh garden. If you haven't been following along with the project, up until now, we have like 300 different species over here in this garden, and it's a mixture of natives and non-native, non-invasive plants. Over here will be mainly native plants. We'll talk more about that as we go here. This is going to be basically a question and answer based on how many questions we got on the first 3 videos from this series. This has just basically been mowed weeds for like 75 years, okay? And there's a little bit of gravel down there too, where they had graveled it at some point in the past. The city has used this in the past as just kind of a staging area for equipment for projects in the neighborhood. So that's where it was. It adjoins this property. We submitted an application to the city, and they went through a process of several steps, and the city council approved it a couple of weeks ago. So that's where we are. We've put up a couple videos talking about it, announcing it, but we wanted to go through some questions, that we have been repeated a few times down at the bottom. One of the questions is, so we got these 2 loads of wood chips. We used the Chip Drop website and got 2 big loads of wood chips, and Steph and I have gotten them spread, except for there's a couple of yards left here in this pile that we'll need at the very back there, because there's some invasive plants we need to take out. Once that's done, this material will go back there and we'll have this accomplished. This is only about 5-6 inches, let's say 5 to 7 inches of wood chips on average. It's impossible to get it exactly even, but that's how much we have. So one question that's come up a lot is, could we get this to break down faster? Yes, we could probably throw some nitrogen over top of this and get it to break down a little bit faster. One main thing we need is rain. We're really dry right now. We're in a moderate drought here in Raleigh, and kind of unusual for us this time of year, but we're supposed to be going into kind of what looks like more of a rainy pattern. Hopefully for the month of February, we can get some moisture in this, because that would help as much as anything. This is the right combination of greens and brown material, meaning that because this was all pine, it was actually awake. It had the pine needles on it during the winter time, so it still had that green material on it, where a deciduous tree, all its leaves would have been off of it. So it has all the right fuel here, the mixture of brown wood and the leafy part of the tree. You can see some of the pine straw. There's a lot of pine straw in this. And so it started cooking pretty much immediately. And you can see if I push this, you can stay right there, Steph, maybe, I don't know. Let's see. If I push, you can see it in a lot of the video. If I push any of this over, you can see the steam coming out of it, where it's already cooking pretty quickly. So it doesn't really need much. So for us, in terms of planting schedule here, we're gonna do mostly woody plants early on. So I don't need it to break down like instantly tomorrow. The woody shrubs that we're gonna move over here, and that we're actually in the process of, we're gonna have some pretty cool content going to some native nurseries and other things over the next year or 2, filling this out. And I think we'll just go and learn about lots of native plants, mostly native to the Southeast United States plants. They won't all come back here, but we'll, if we go to a nursery and learn about 10 and bring back 3, that'll probably be how this will go over the next couple of years as we fill this out. Initially, woody plants are going to come in here, and they'll be fine planted into this material. We won't mix this into the soil. We'll pull this back, plant the plants, and then put a light layer back near the where they were planted. We'll probably hold off on a lot of herbaceous perennials for a little while until it does break down a little more, and that'll be towards summer. Probably by the time this is really gone from 6 or 7 inches thick down to a couple inches thick, and has become kind of a humus layer here. And that's also actually a good time to plant some of our herbaceous perennials anyway, because the roots are actively growing on them, and they tend to just grab a hold that time of year. We'll do some content based around that, because we always talk about what's the best time of year to plant a tree or a shrub or a perennial or whatever. And I actually think that as long as you have the ability to throw some water at it, summer is a great time to plant herbaceous perennials, because again, that's when they're actively growing roots, and they can really anchor anchor themselves in really quickly. So there you go. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to add anything to this. Everything, it'll take care of itself, and we've got some time here. We're not in a giant rush. But about 6 months, I think, is the point where this would be broken down enough that you would no longer recognize it as big, chunky material like this. And we'll address the other garden down in Wallace here in the video as well. Secondly, one of the other questions that came up a lot was about how we're paying for this garden. And so really, and I answered this in the Sunday garden question and answer video, if you've watched that, about the fact that you guys watching this video right now, you know, is helping pay for it, because the ads that pop up during this video are part of what pays for it. T-shirts, which are on sale for 10% off during the month of February, are part of that. The Learn to Garden video series, the weekly garden planner, anything you guys are contributing to the channel, being members of the channel, which there's down at the bottom, donating to the channel, however, is how this is is going to be taken care of. A lot of the purpose of this channel over the last, since we started this, especially since we started this project in Raleigh, has been to show how to do gardening as economical as possible. And so, just starting with these wood chips, which I just tipped the driver of 2 different trucks, to get 45 yards of mulch, which if I had paid for from a mulch yard would have been, $900 probably with delivery for this much material. So a lot of what we do and a lot of what we show, we'll take some cuttings on things. We'll take divisions on things. There's a lot of different strategies we'll use to save money on this as well, which is, again, it's been part of my channel. I didn't want to do, occasionally we do some sort of project over here that would cost a fair amount of money, but overall we've tried showing seed starting, and that some of this will be seed starting. Some of this will be donations. I've had a lot of emails from folks that wanted to donate plants to it. I haven't returned all those emails yet, so thank you guys who have said those. So there'll be all kinds of different ways that we'll try to save money, sharing with neighbors and swapping things and saving money on mulch. But and again, you guys watching the videos is important. And all of these videos are in a playlist called Native Garden. And you can actually subscribe to a playlist. You can go to my channel, pull up the playlist button, go to this Native Garden, and then subscribe to that. And anytime a video comes up, if this is the only thing you're interested in the channel, is how this Native Garden, goes, thanks. I'd love for you to watch them all, because we have a big garden over here as well. And we're also going to have another project down in Wallace, North Carolina as well. But you can actually subscribe to this playlist. And one other way you can contribute to this garden is to buy tickets to the open garden, which is June 20th and 21st. They're over on the website, same area my t-shirts are in at the store. So if you go to HortTube.com, up at the top, there's a button that says store. T-shirts and the tickets for the open garden are there. And $10 of the $25 ticket are going to the J.C. Ralston Arboretum and the gardens of southeastern North Carolina. So you're also contributing to some public gardens as well by buying those tickets, but that's another way in which you can contribute. One other thing I've said in the past is some of our native plants don't really need the soil amended all that much. And that is true. Some plants do like it leaner than others. But when we're dealing with native plants to the Southeast United States, and I went through my feelings on, all native gardens and that kind of thing on the Sunday Q&A, if you want a longer version of my answer, just in general on native plants, because I'm an equal opportunity plantsman. There are lots of Asian and European and African and Australian plants in our garden. And I probably just missed some other place, South American plants in our garden over here. And we love them as long as they're not invasive to our surrounding, hurting our surrounding space. So I'm an equal opportunity plantsman, but this garden right here is specifically natives to the Southeast United States. When we're talking about that, we're talking about plants from just all over the place. We have in the Southeast here, we have the highest mountain and the highest peak in eastern North America is in the western part of my state. And then of course we have the sand hills just a little east of us, which have its own very unique space. And then all the way down to Florida and over to East Texas, we have red clay and gray clay and low phosphorus soils and high phosphorus soils and really super organic soils and really lean soils. And I could just go on and on and on. So what I'm trying to do is find some sort of happy medium where I can at least give something a try, right? So I'm not going to over amend it, but I'm amending it a little bit because the wood chips are helping me smother this grass. They're also, you know, again, they're going to regulate the ups and downs, the dryness. You know, when it's abnormally dry, you know, this organic material is going to help hold some moisture in place. It's also going to capture more of the rain, you know, that falls from the sky and prevents it from just running out into the city sewer system. It's going to regulate soil temperature. So it's going to do some things for me. And again, I just want to try to find a happy medium where maybe I can try a little bit of everything, where it's not over amended and not under amended, but to say that something likes clay soil, is a southeastern native, but likes clay soil or likes sandy soil or likes wet soil or likes this. We have it all. We have all of those things in the Southeast. And so I don't think I could do a particular style of gardening here and try all of those things. I don't think it would work. So that's my thinking on just trying to find a sweet spot in the middle somewhere. Next question was lots of questions about the wood chips themselves. This happened to be pine. We got on the Chip Drop website, the guys who brought the first load, or brought the load over, it just happened to be all pine, didn't request it. That's happened to be what they were cutting down. The way Chip Drop website works is the company actually pays Chip Drop a small amount of money per load. And basically they're just matching up a tree service that's working in your area with you, so that they can drive those wood chips over to your house, drop them, and then get back on the job site as quick as possible. Our stump dump here in Raleigh is from this neighborhood. And I've, as a landscaper, been there many, many, many times. Is with traffic a good 45, you know, in tough lunchtime traffic, it'll be 45 minutes potentially to get over there. So they'd be 2 hours almost off of the job, going to the stump dump and coming back, whereas he was able just to go 3 blocks, dump it here, and get right back to work. So it was worth them paying whatever they paid Chip Drop for that. You're gonna get what they're gonna get. You can request that there's no stumps in it, and I did. So this is all chips. There's a couple little stringy sticks in here, but that's it, that go through the chipper and don't get chipped. No big deal. I liked the pine, especially this time of year in the winter time. I would care less other times of the year, but this time of the year, it had that green material on it. So that was kind of nice. But no, you could say you don't want particular types of wood. You could exclude wood, but you can't select what wood you're gonna get. So, you know, that was a question that came up. It does heat up really quickly, and it develops a crust that becomes slightly harder to spread in time, you know, if it sits here for a long time. So we got on this really, really quickly. I will say that having this pine bark mixed into it, you know, where you would have hardwood bark if it was an oak or something like that, probably is going to keep it a little more fluffy in general, because that pine bark doesn't break down as fast as hardwood bark does. But you can see that steam coming off of it. It immediately started heating up. But, you know, anyway, that's all things wood chips. We use this wood chip method. Typically, I use a deeper wood chip method than this, because normally I wouldn't be in a hurry to start on a project like this. And I would maybe put 8 or 10 inches out here and then just walk away from it for 6 months. But instead, I'm trying to find a happy medium here where I can smother this grass, build a humus layer, not over amend it, and get to work, because I'd actually like to put some plants over here pretty soon. There were several folks that brought up the fact that they've tried to use the Chip Drop website in the past, but they haven't been able to get wood chips. We're lucky here in this neighborhood, I guess lucky or unlucky, that trees are falling apart constantly. Raleigh's called the city of oaks, and a lot of people had the forethought a long time ago to plant lots of oaks across the city. And a lot of those oaks are aging out, and I can see them. We're basically in an oak savanna here is what's been created. But it appears that in an urban setting, somewhere around 70 to 90 years, they really do kind of fall apart. Unfortunately, they're not being replaced with shade trees. They're being replaced with crepe myrtles and other ornamental trees. I'd love to see some of these oaks going back in, but they're not. But as they come down, there's just a constant supply of wood chips here. You know, I can get on the Chip Drop website, and literally it was the same morning when the first load came, and then another load the next morning. If you're having a problem getting, you know, the Chip Drop's website's not working for you, I would just contact a local arborist and just say, hey, if somebody lives near you, and maybe they can drop them off on the way home, you know, if it works out for them, works out for you, maybe you offer them a little bit of money to do so, so that, you know, any inconvenience they have bringing them. But yeah, you can just contact those folks directly. All kinds of questions about termites and, you know, will the pile catch on fire, you know, and all kinds of questions like that. I get the pile spread pretty quick, because if you do get a pile of wood chips, if you pile wood up high enough in the summertime and it's got some moisture to work with and it can build up some heat pretty quick, I imagine there is some sort of fire hazard. So get them spread, you know, quickly. I don't think about the termite thing. I mean, there's all this wooded space behind us, all that dead and dying wood material that's back there, you know, likely has termites in it, because termites do what termites do. So it's not a concern of mine. But again, I always get those types of questions. Next question, the Wallace Garden. So down at the gardens of southeastern North Carolina, we were starting a project down there last year, and it is continuing. We used very big, what he was able to get down there for wood chips was a very chunky material. A lot of it was root material, which, you know, the top of a tree breaks down much faster than root material does. So that material is going to take a while to break down. But we are continuing with that project. We already have some magnolias that are going to go in that project that are sitting over here in our vegetable garden right now. They're planted in the ground, that are going to that project. Likely what we'll do on the Wallace Garden this year is add in the big material. So any ornamental trees we're going to have, any larger growing shrubs, large material. And then hopefully that soil will be improved over this next year. And then we can start on herbaceous perennials and smaller shrubs and that kind of thing. So that'll be our plan over in Wallace this year. Let's get the bones in place, and then we'll do the more detailed stuff next year after most of this is done. Several questions about, will the garden be ready by the open house? It'll be some version of ready. There'll be lots of shrubs in here. A lot of the larger growing things will have been planted. The fence piece will be in the front. We'll have some sort of, yes, in some shape or another, but you know, it's February now and that's June. So, you know, I wouldn't, don't set your expectations too high for this side. We will have definitely planted a lot of things. So there'll be a lot of things to see in this garden. You never know though. I mean, we have, you know, this garden over here, we could have had an open house the very first year. I mean, everything over here hit the ground running, and it looked fantastic really quickly. We had tons of annual, we had huge color display over here. You know, we're not doing as much of that annual planting over here, you know, not as much color going in initially. So it won't be the showiest thing on earth, but there'll be a lot of plants in here by then, and it'll be very well integrated into our existing garden. There's a path in and out, you know, from both. So it should be an exciting addition to the garden. What it actually looks like June 20th, you know, I can't really say. Next up was all the questions about the invasives. So we have some mondo grass, some liriope in here. There's some creeping Charlie in here, this is going to be kind of nice for us really, because this creeping Charlie has been sitting on the edge over here this whole time coming in. So now we have control of this side, and I can stop this creeping Charlie from being part of the main garden going forward. So the wood chips are deep enough here to kill 98% of that material. Something's going to dare to pop itself up through here, and we'll deal with it at that time. We can, you know, chop it off with some sort of some sort of hoe, or we could spray it, or we could do whatever the heck we want to do. But it's mowed super, super low and then walked on again, we haven't had enough rain, but we've had enough that it's, you know, packed down pretty good. So this will smother most of it. Some of the mondo grass, liriope, will try to poke its head up through. That's the experience we had over here, and then we dealt with it when we had to deal with it. The larger growing invasives that are toward the back, the Chinese privet and the nandina and the few other things, English ivy and those kinds of things back there, I'm gonna get that stuff chopped as low as I can, bury it in the rest of these wood chips. Again, something's gonna dare to poke its head up through, and we'll deal with it when we deal with it. But if we can get 90% of them done, then, you know, that's great. Somebody asked about using some of the material that we're cutting off the Chinese privet and other things as just some sort of fence. We could do that. I could weave some sort of artistic thing together. You know, we could have a back fence back there made out of a woven tree, and I've done that. I've actually done that on landscape jobs in the past where we took down Eleagnus and other kind of flexible, pliable shrubs and then created art out of them. So yeah, we could turn the invasives into art here in the garden if we wanted to. In all likelihood though, I'll chip it up and just integrate it into the wood chips or over here and just use the material as the organic material that it is. The what is a native plant question I answered pretty thoroughly in the Q&A on Sunday. If you want to go back, and my long version, I think it was 6 or 8 minutes, I talked about, you know, what I consider a native, and I kind of addressed it earlier in the video here about, you know, I'm an equal opportunity plantsman, but the plants that will be in this area will be native to the Southeast United States. And again, we have a lot of different types of spaces in the Southeast. So wet areas and dry areas and sloped areas and flat areas and clay areas. So where will we get these plants? You guys are gonna see that. That's kind of the fun part. I have a lot of friends in this business across, you know, up to Philadelphia and beyond and down to Florida and out over into Tennessee and other places we're gonna be visiting. That will be a lot of fun to visit some of our friends that we've made over the years and see, you know, their native plantsmen and see their nurseries and, you know, get some ideas and see what their favorites are. And it may be things we integrate in here and maybe not, but we can learn a lot of, you know, a lot of new plants that we haven't been able to introduce on the channel over the year. We haven't introduced on the channel over the years. So it's kind of exciting for me too, because I'm sure that every place we go, there's going to be something that Steph and I don't know or haven't seen. And so that'll be exciting too. You know, and we'll be running into new things. So I think that's going to be a fun part of this project, is that we may, in 3,000 square feet, only have room for 150 plants or something like that, maybe 100, I don't know how many, but 150, let's say we put 150 different species in here. Hopefully we can learn about 500 or more, you know, in the process of that. And I think that'll be a fun part of this experience, is visiting those nurseries and the people who are passionate about our native plants here to the Southeast United States and probably other areas of the Southwest and other areas of the country as well. The other thing is, this will have an open gate at the end of it, and this is the city's property, and if somebody wants to walk through here, they can. And we're gonna have the plants tagged over here. Are we worried about people coming into our garden? No, we'll have some sort of ceremonial gate at the 2 entrances to our garden, to the back and the front, and maybe have some sort of sign on it that says, you know, private space or whatever. But I'm not all that worried about it. In general, we get a lot of people that walk down the street, a lot of people that drive down the street to look at our garden. So we're kind of used to it at this point. And gardening people in general are just nice folks. You know, it's amazing to me that we've walked up on people's front stoops before and rang doorbells and knocked on doors and gone, and then they're like, why are you here at my house, when they're initially answering the door, and then you say something about their garden and then you're immediately friends. You know, it's amazing how the stress level comes down on something so quickly when you want to talk to somebody about their plants. And so, no, again, it's just not something we're going to stress about. Somebody asked if we were going to have school tours here. If somebody wants to come, that's going to be fine. And in fact, the NC State Horticulture Club is coming in April to tour the garden, and this won't have much happening over here on it, but our other garden is. So we have groups like that anyway coming, so that won't bother us at all. As long as we know somebody's coming, you know, absolutely, they'll be welcome over here. We actually got lots of questions on signage for over here, and the things that are in this part of the garden will be signed in some way. So, and Steph and I, we've been to a lot of gardens around the country, you know, that have signage, and so we've seen lots of examples of great signage and some inadequate signage, you know, I'd have to say. And Steph was actually in charge of, when she was at NC State in the Hort program, of putting tags on a lot of things that are, and we might shoot that in another video for next week. We have another video, we're gonna do a walk around video tour in the neighborhood. And we'll maybe show you some of the signs that are left on some of the things she tagged a long time ago at NC State. We'll show that in a video this next week. But so we're trying to think through economics of signing everything and making sure that, you know, people get something out of it. We'll figure that out in time. There are a few things that are going to move over here pretty quick. So this project is going to get going pretty quick. There'll be a few things going in it within the next week or two. Another question, and I'll wrap it up, you know, on this question. And again, you can ask questions down below this video for anything to do with this side of the garden over here, and we'll continue to answer them as we put things in videos over here in the next few weeks. A lot of questions about wet plants, plants that would take wet feet, so carnivorous plants and other plants. When we're talking about native plants to the southeast, there's a good portion of eastern North Carolina and eastern South Carolina that are actually floodplains. Lots of Florida is a floodplain. Lots of the southern part of southeastern part of Georgia is a floodplain. And so there's a lot of our native plants that do really well in wetter spaces, and a lot of our interesting plants. We probably do have the opportunity down toward this Chinese privet that we're taking down to create kind of a boggy place there, and it would probably be a good idea to be kind of the last spot to hold the water here. And we could plant some of those things. So it's on my radar, to create some sort of boggy space down here toward the bottom of this that will be, again, like the last place to filter the water before it ends up in the city sewer system. Another thing that we can show folks for, in the community here about trying to get this water in the ground rather than in the sewer system, where it causes downstream flooding. Pretty much all of our cities across the country experience this during heavy rain events, is that we have so much roof, sidewalk, streets, and hard surfaces that, when it rains heavy, our downstream neighbors tend to it doesn't go well for them. So getting as much of this water in the ground as possible, and I showed that in a video, one of our Friday videos a few weeks ago, about how much water we can actually throw at this garden over here before it would actually run off, and we want to do the same thing over here. But yes, we'll likely be integrating some sort of some plants that will take wetter conditions, and we'll create a space over here for that going forward. So there you go, thank you. There's some of the questions that we've gotten, and Steph and I and Holly and Griffin have been out here working hard trying to get these wood chips out. We've got just a couple yards left and some things to cut down in the back, and then I think we're at the starting line, which is the main thing. I talk about that frequently in consultations and other things. Sometimes you just got to push through and get to the starting line so that you can do the fun part now, which is talking about plants and planting plants, right? Once you get there, you got the back-breaking work to get there, but then we have the fun part for a little while for sure. So thank you guys so much for watching.